Welcome to Pause for the Truth, where you can sit back, relax, and hear an honest dialogue about health, wealth, legal, and social issues. The hosts are Dr. Rogers Kane, family practice physician, and Jocelyn Turner, health education consultant, with co hosts from the Northeast Florida Medical Society and its foundation. Stay tuned for the truth about matters affecting you and your family. We're here to tell you what's really going on and why. Good evening and welcome to Pause for the Truth. I am co host Jocelyn Turner. So glad to be here tonight for a very important conversation. Looking forward to getting it started. Have two good friends of mine, and guess I shouldn't say that because I don't know what they may say tonight, but I think they're going to be on their best behavior. But so happy to have them. My co-host, Dr. Rogers Kane, will be joining us shortly. He is a practicing family practice physician, so if his patient, he has to take care of the first line of duty. Oh, here he comes. Darn, I should have been saying something horrible. I was actually thinking nicely of him. How you doing this evening, Dr. Kane?
I'm good. Hi, everybody.
All
Good.
good.
We were just getting started, Dr. Kane. I was just sharing with our audience that you had we spoke earlier and that you had the busiest day that you could have had seeing patients. I reminded them that you are a practicing physician, family practice physician. So busy day on the home front, huh?
In the practice world, I'm really practicing hard.
Well, I know your patients appreciate your service to them today.
I had a set of patients from a colleague that's retired, and boy, I tell you, you talking about something, but that's a different story.
Well, at least they entrusted you with their patients to say, "Go see Dr. Kane."
Yeah. Sometimes I ain't looking for trust.
Well, Dr. Kane, we're pleased to have two wonderful guests, and these gentlemen, I was sharing with our audience that they are friends of mine, but I was teasing with it and said maybe I shouldn't say that until after I hear what they're going to say. But no, they're very smart gentlemen who have really done a lot to serve our community, not just here in Jacksonville, but beyond Jacksonville. And what I love about both of them is their passion for people in helping to increase awareness to people, making folks more knowledgeable about things that are happening. Hopefully that they will be more proactive about doing things instead of what my latest rant is, being complacent about doing stuff. Looks like we lost Mr. Barlow, so hopefully he'll come back online. But joining us tonight as we have the conversation about voting is our responsibility. When I created the flyer, I decided to be a little soft with the topic, but we don't have to stick with that because we really want to talk about why it is important for us to vote. And I'm going to call you senator because you know, once a senator, always a senator, right? Former state senator Tony Hill.
You can just call me Tony.
Tony.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of shenanigans.
Which one of the Tonys are
you? There are a lot of shenanigans happening, and today was a day. I won't say I woke up, but today started with some disturbing news about what happened to the community action agencies in Florida. And if you're not familiar, here in Northeast Florida, we call it NEFCA, the Northeast Florida Community Action Agency, with the news that their funding is no longer being supported by the Florida Department of Economics, whatever it's called. And that means that folks who need assistance for electricity, for their rent, and some other basic needs are no longer going to be able to get those subsidies to support their families. Mm-hmm. I shared with some folks and even with the gentleman before we got started. And also joining us is A. Wellington, Al Barlow. How you doing this evening, Al?
All is well. Thanks for the invitation.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here. So I was sharing with someone this evening that a few days ago that a lot of people over the years have been advocating for living wages. And those living wages is to simply pay people enough money to make sure that they're able to take care of themselves and their families. Because I call them service workers, when they're going out when we go out rather to restaurants and hotels and all sorts of places where those folks who make sure that things are nice for us, those folks don't always make a living wage. So we need to put provisions in place to help take care of them. And they're also, by the way, in the nursing homes and in the hospitals taking care of our loved ones who need that extra care. So why is it that people, and I'm not asking you all this question, why do people have such heartburn about taking care and supporting and putting things in place in order to help take care of people who may need that extra help? Because I hear many elected officials who run for not only local but national office proclaim to be there for the people. That may be the case when they first start, but boy, Mr. Barlow, folks sure get corrupt after they seem to fall into, as you said recently, the good old boy politics. What's happening with folks? Do you think that they changed? Do you think that they really started to get into the business of being an elected official because they wanted to make a difference and they just fell victim to the good old boy politics? Or did they get into politics knowing that they can just fall into the good old boy politics?
It's a combination of both and additional things on top of that. I ran for State House of Representatives in 2000. I lost. I ran for circuit judge in 2012, and I lost. But I really won both times because you can really get swept away in some of that stuff if you're not careful. If you go up there to do the right thing, you get frustrated because a lot of people up there is quid pro quo, and you can get lost. But what happens a lot of times is you have people that they do that as a business. And I'm quite sure Senator Hill can tell you more about that than me because he's been in the belly of the beast. He and I used to run up to Tallahassee together just to speak and things like that. Then he got elected in the House and in the Senate and all that business, so he can tell you more about it. But what I've experienced is here's the reality of it. If your morals are not in place, you're gonna get swept away. Period. Point blank. You have to be rooted and grounded in some morality, if not the Bible itself. Because if you're not, you're going to get swept away because there's always going to be a quid pro quo. Hey man, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. And if you're not principled, you're going to get lost. Period. Point blank.
Tony, would you say that's the case where you, and I'm sure you were, and by the way, you don't have to give any specifics, but were you ever approached to do things that were against your morals and values, and you just like, no, man, I can't do that, and you stuck to what your agenda was and your promise, rather, to your constituents since you were elected to office?
First of all, Josh and Dr. Kane, thank y'all for the opportunity to come and share tonight. We've got so much going on, but as Reverend Barlow just said so eloquently, and I just have another buzzword I tell people, Dr. Kane, when you were talking about the living wages, Josh, I just want to drop this in your spirit. Me and my family doing well, the rest of y'all go to hell. Me and my foe and no more. That's what it's boiled down. We got these reality shows come on TV, so it's all about who could be a winner. So even when I ran, I knew some guys that I grew up with. They said, Tony, I ain't for all those social issues, but if you can help my daughter get in the University of Florida, I'll write you a check. If you can call over here and do something for me, I can write you a check. And it goes on and on. But a lot of times when people see where you are on the issues, they don't even come to you with that craziness. I can remember sometimes being the only red light on the board. And one time, one guy came and said, if the people in Jacksonville really knew, I said, you mean if the business people in Jacksonville really knew? He wasn't talking about people. He was just talking about business people, right? And I said, well, in this life, you have to do what you have to do. I have to do what I have to do. It's going to be some votes you can never go with me on, and it's definitely going to be some votes I'm never going to go with you on. So you know who I am, up straight up, letting you know who I am. But then we had some people that remember the caucus, Reverend Barlow. I mean, we have a caucus meeting on Monday night. We're on the floor to vote on Tuesday and Wednesday. Everybody has their talking points on certain amendments or bills. Joshua, we would have to actually ease over to the members and ask them, what's the name of that song you're singing? Either what dance are you doing? Because we just had a caucus meeting.
Right.
We got you getting ready to speak on an issue for us. Just say you scared and don't want to do nothing, then we won't be giving you our information, because now we don't know if you don't want to give it to the enemy. Well, Tony, I got to get this billing. I got to get this request, and they got me over the barrel with this. I said, well, you should have told us that last night. We wouldn't have gave you our ammunition or our information that we were going to go and speak on the floor. But we had members like that, Josh, that as Reverend Barlow say, quick pro quo. I mean, what's in it for me? And that's why you find the NAFTAs of the world that goes under, because nobody pays attention to that, because those folks can't write the checks to keep us in office. So we go where the folks that can milk the cow. And we like to tell people in politics that is the number one floor of influence, is the cash that you can put in your campaign coffers, because when they come after you, you got to have something to say to them. That's why you raise money in campaigns, Dr. Kane, because when they come after you, you got to be able to respond. And if you don't respond, it's like my grandmother said. She said, baby, they were talking about you today. I said, right. Yes, ma'am. She said, it's got to be true because it was on TV. That's my take, Johnson. I'm gonna shut up and listen to the rest of it. That's my take on it.
So with all the fighting that you both still do on a daily basis, you know, Dr. Kane and I do this podcast weekly. And by the way, we're not getting paid to do this. For those of you who are out there, we do this because we want to bring people like you on to educate people, enlighten them.
We actually paid to do this. We paid to do this. Okay.
Right. You pay money to do it.
Right? So what frustrates you though? You know, you fight every day for people, but it seems like people are complacent and are just standing by, letting things happen and just shaking their heads and say, it's a shame what they're doing. But they just don't seem to have the fight to do anything about it.
A lot of times, Josh, in that situation is sometimes we have to have that empathy and meet people where they are. And a lot of times we don't do that. We assume that people, even in worship, we assume that people know about early voting. We assume, you'll be surprised how many people I have approached since the primary that did not realize they had to go back and vote again. True. Because of the 50%. See, those are the jargon words you and I use every day. Reverend Barlow, that's our talk. As somebody say, that's church talk. But most people don't know they have to go back. So we have to meet people where they are. And we have to say, if you're sick, I'm going to help you get well. And if you are broken, I'm going to try to fix you. But then if we see in people something, then we have to serve them. And that's where I like about Reverend Barlow when he went after that homeless situation. He saw where people were, he saw the humanity in them, and so he served them. Mm-hmm. Even though he has the pedigrees and stuff on the wall and all that, but he came out of that comfort zone to help some people that were uncomfortable to be comfortable. And so that's what we have to do with the politics, because a lot of time you will hear people tell you, well, my vote won't make a difference. I can't, they just talk this and talk that, but we got to somehow tie policy in to voting and not people into voting. We got to get policy in first with people, and then they'll turn out to do what we want to do. And then we can't just leave them when we do that. A lot of times we get elected, we don't ever go back to the people. It's time to run again.
Right. That's
right?
so true.
And so you know, you at the University Club, you whining and dining with the chamber and the Rotary and all that. We don't even go back to the community.
And you bring election time, that's when they want to bring me some watermelon and chicken. And,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
Right.
come on, man.
Right.
I don't care for
Right.
that. I need something
Right.
with some
What-
stuff.
The other thing is, Doc, what you think I've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years? I've been eating watermelon chicken all the time. I don't need your watermelon chicken to eat.
Well, no, yeah, I don't need yours. I go back.
Right, I can go get my own. Yeah, but somehow we got to meet.
Yeah, and what I like about, as you say, Pastor Barlow, because I'm sorry, Attorney Pastor, he has so many credentials. I forget what to call him. I just call him Barlow.
I don't use reverend, so I put pastor.
Pastor.
Let me just tell you why. Reverend, Reverend, is only mentioned one time in the whole Bible. It's Psalm 111 and 19. I think Psalm 111, 19. And it says, holy and reverend. He sent redemption to his people. Holy and reverend is his name. And it's talking about God. So that's the only reason why I don't use reverend, because that is a title that God has for himself. And he only mentions it one time in the Bible. Most people don't know that. So I always use that as a conversation piece.
Listen, what I like about Pastor Barlow, he gonna school me every time, and the senator. I'm still gonna call him the senator. They always gonna school me on something. But I want to get back to Pastor Barlow. Tony's comment about Pastor Barlow, that you have, and we see him on the wall behind you, your credentials. But you saw, as many of us do, when we drive down through downtown Jacksonville, all the homeless people that are lining the street. And for the life of me, I don't understand why people just pass by and shake their heads and say, oh, that's a shame. They won't do anything about those people. But I am so moved, Pastor, about what you have been doing with your housing for homeless. And by the way, I tried to share with someone what you said the other day, and I sure botched it up. Can you explain what you've been advocating for about the percentage of money that's allocated for businesses or development or something?
Yeah, I'll do that. But I'm also going to tie that into what the senator was just talking about. He was talking about policy. I'm going to talk about practice. Okay. And see what it is with respect to elections. The average person, the average just regular Joe Blow person, white collar worker, blue collar worker, they cannot make a direct connection between what's in their bank account and who's in office downtown. And so there's some practical lessons that people can be taught, because a lot of people want to vote for the president or whatever, but the reality of it is, hey, when I ask people, who's the most powerful person in your city, they'll say the mayor or something like that. No, it's the federal judge, the chief federal judge. He can have the mayor arrested. He can have a governor arrested just like that. So most people don't know things like that. But there's some direct connectivity between your voting and how much money you're going to have, or what kind of job you can have, what kind of lifestyle you can have, how much money you can have to donate to people like homeless people, whatever. Let's talk about homeless people. I'm going to tell you, I've seen 3 different types of people when it comes down to homeless people. I've seen the person who genuinely cares. They feel sorry for them, but they will not lift one finger to help them. But they really feel bad about them, but not enough to help them. Okay. And then the other extreme is they'll see somebody and they will stop. They will give them the last penny out of their pocket. They will take them to get an ID. They'll take them they'll do anything for them almost, because they have just that much compassion. And then here's the one that's really difficult for me to deal with. I have to pray for these people. They don't want to help them, and they don't want you to help them either, because they don't want to feel guilty because they're not doing what they know you should do. But the reality of it is, it's only but by the grace of God that I'm not homeless. And I understand that. I get it. Mm-hmm. And so I have these degrees up here. Listen, I'm their attorney. I'm their spokesperson. I'm their lobbyist. I joke about this, but it's for real. They don't have a lobbyist downtown, so it's me. When they get in trouble, they don't have a lawyer. It's me. When the Social Security gets cut off or whatever, I help them get it cut back on. So the way I look at it is, God blessed me to have these gifts and these talents. I've used them for rich people. I've used them for middle-class people, for 20-something years. And now they're on loan from God to these homeless people. And what's so good about it is, whatever you sow, that's what you're going to reap. And so since I've been sowing into these people's lives, I've been reaping a harvest that you cannot believe. And I'm not talking about money now. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about holistic peace in your soul, knowing that you're right. And so let's connect that to politics. 5%. Jacksonville is a very unique city in a lot of ways. Some of them are positive. Okay, they're positive and negative. Jacksonville has a corporate welfare agency. That's what I call it. They call it the Downtown Investment Authority, and they call what they give out, they call it economic incentives. I call that corporate welfare. That comes from your and my tax dollars. And what they do is they give millions. I calculated they gave 800 million to rich people. Watch this, in grants and forgivable loans that they don't have to pay back. And so I'm coming and saying, look, I know you're going to keep giving this money away. I want 5% of it for the poor, 5% of it for the homeless. They're finally starting to listen to me. Finally. They took that idea that I had and they've already used it to create a jobs bill, but they're pulling 1% for that jobs bill. I'm saying, fine, great. Now we've set the precedent. We know it can be done. Now give me 5% for the homeless people. And so they're finally starting to come around to that. And for the people in city council who don't want to do that, vote against them, period, point blank. They're giving rich people your and my tax money that they don't have to pay back. There's a deal pending right now. That's an incentive. If they finish the project, they're gonna get $25 million just for finishing a job that the city didn't even ask them to do. I want 5% of that $25 million for the homeless.
And the reality of it is, for those of us who are privileged enough to be able to walk in a bank and apply for a loan, if we do not pay that loan back, just think about what will happen to us, right? But yet there's nobody who's going to forgive us. Oh, Jocelyn, I forgive you. You're doing such great work in the community. Nobody's going to forgive me for not paying my loan back. Nobody's going to offer for me not to pay my loan back. And I'm not a millionaire, but these are people, like you say, who are millionaires who are forgiven. If you're just tuning in, we are privileged to have Tony Hill and Pastor A. Wellington Barlow with us. We're talking about voting as our responsibility. If you have a question of the gentleman, dial in right now, 888-669-1280. Again, 888-669-1280. So let's talk about voters. So when we talk about voters, Tony, you mentioned that we have to meet people where they are. So yesterday in Jacksonville, here in Northeast Florida, we started voting for local campaigns or local positions that are still vacant for us to make our decision on. What advice would you give to people to tell them, don't assume that people in your circle are going to vote? Go the extra step to get them to the poll.
Well, I mean, Ron, it sounds so simple, and people spend millions and millions of dollars on advertisement, whether it be in the gutter, whether it be positive, but we owe it to those who have gone on to glory, and we're here to tell the story. And the way we tell that story is by participating in a process that dehumanized them. Just the different tactics that they use to stop us from voting. And now in Florida, we have 3 ways we can vote. You can vote by mail, you can vote early, and you can vote on election day. A lot of other states don't have that. As crazy and chaotic as Florida is, we have a democracy where we have 3 opportunities at the bite of the apple. And so we have this important election coming up. We have a contrast. We have a either or. We have one person standing on this side. We have another person standing on the side that is speaking to the issues that are important to us. As Pastor Barlow was talking about the 5%, as you were talking about the living wage, we have 2 diabolic candidates that are on opposite sides of those issues. And so we have to come to people and meet them where they are and let them know that they have to connect the dots. and connecting that dot to a better life, we have an opportunity in the next 12 days now, it was 14, 12 days now of early voting to put someone in a position that will cater to the needs and concerns that we talk about, we protest about. I like to tell people now is not the time to protest. Now is the time to go and vote.
Or your protest can be your vote.
Right. That can be your vote. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that's what I would say, Josh, when we meet them where they are, then we have to serve the people. Right. And so I just wanted to drop this in that we have rides to the poll. I sent you a copy today. I don't know if you received it. You maybe can put it up on the website and so people can see it, Facebook it out. But we have numbers to the polls. We're telling people you can vote anywhere in the county for 14 days. I mean, now it's 12 days. On election day, you have to vote in your precinct. Please don't go down there arguing if you hadn't voted in 4 terms and the precinct is gone. You had 14 days. Pastor Barlow, you had 14 days to get saved. No, I won't say that. I won't say that. But I'm just saying there should be no excuse for us not participating and not being engaged in what's going on. Because, see, to me, Josh, when you're voting, you're like selecting a jury. Let me get down to where Pastor Barlow is with all those pedigrees on the back wall there. That's what you're doing. You're voting for a jury. Because right now, you and I go down there to city council. If we haven't participated in voting, that's going to fall on deaf ear to those folks that's in that jury box that's listening to us. But if we know we've been out there and we voted and we put some people in, they're going to at least say, hey, give him 2 more minutes to talk. Or somebody's going to say, no, I think he has a point there. And I want to talk a little bit more about the point. But if you haven't participated in the process of election, you're going to get your 3 minutes and that's it. And they recorded your name and where your address and that's going to be it. But we have to participate in this democracy. This is the third realm of us as a people. The first was to abolish slavery. We did that. The second was the having the right to vote. People did that. Now it's left up to us to take that participation and turn it into something not for us, but for the generation that's coming behind us. Because at one time, my great-grandchild, if I'm still living, is going to ask me, Granddaddy, what happened? Why we don't have these rights? That's what they're saying now when they talk about banning the books, right? But they're using that as a political issue. So that's where I would say to you tonight and to the audience tonight, we have to, at some point, participate in the process. Because if we don't, then the other side, i.e., whatever that may be, independent, Republican, or Democrat, they're not going to ever speak to our issues because they know we don't participate. We raise hell, go to jail, but we don't participate in the electric politics, the body politics that is going on in the city today. And then, of course, next year, everybody's going to get excited about a presidential election. But just as Pastor Barlow talked about the chief judge, I ask people all the time, Johnson, even when President Obama was in, and as close as I was to him. But I ask people, have you ever seen the president? They said, no, but on TV. I said, that's probably where you're only going to see him at, on TV. I supported him like I don't know what, and I had to make an appointment or if he called and invited me to something. But if we don't participate, we won't even get those calls.
Yeah, you said something today, by the way, a few minutes ago that I shared with someone. I share it day in and day out with people because we take it for granted. People died for us to have the right to vote. Absolutely. And we can't take that extra step. And I get it when it comes to, Pastor, when it comes to referendums, judges, sometimes, first of all, I don't know anything about the history of the judges, but the thing that we can do is go to people who might be knowledgeable, who can share those. There are folks like yourselves who put yourself out there to help educate people, right? And so if you don't know Because that's what I do. I'll check with people I know. We go on Facebook and social media for everything else and search. Why don't we?
Now, Josh, let me add to you that, and Pastor Barlow and Dr. King would know, we have some relationships with the people.
Yeah.
Give us some credit that we know these people.
Right.
Right. Now, I know some people pay to play and all that, but we do have some relationship with these people. Mm-hmm. And these people are saying to us that, hey, Tony, can you connect the dots with me? I'm trying to get in the community and stuff there. But I tell a lot of people a lot of time, please don't wake up in the morning and want to get elected to something. Be involved in the community some kind of way. Have some kind of connection in the community, because people don't care about your pedigree. They don't care. They don't, and then I have to tell them sometimes, you ain't the first Negro who went to Harvard. Some other black folks went to Harvard and went to Yale. So don't get excited about that. But if you've done something in the community, but the other side of it, Josh, even when you were at the Department of Health, you have some relationship with some people that want to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. And so we're saying to the people, if you don't trust them, trust us.
Yeah.
Hold us accountable.
Yeah. I'll say this right here. I'm more of an extremist. I know human nature. From dealing with and representing people, some top criminals, you know what I'm saying? From misdemeanors on up to attempted murder kind of people, so I know behavior. And here's the reality of it. People are selfish by nature. They're selfish. And so unless and until they see a connectivity between a benefit for them, they have no reason to vote. Even I'm gonna just share this with you. Even with homeless people. Okay, It's hard to get people to give. So I said, I'm experimenting. I'm gonna offer them something to see if they'll give. So we designed a logo for a hat, a cap, put it on there. It's okay, if you donate $50, we'll give you a cap. Money just starts coming. They got to get something, unfortunately. And so that's the practical application of voting. When you can connect some benefit to these people personally, they will go out and vote. But there's also a negative incentive. Here's the negative incentive, and it's true, and it's happening. I tell people sometimes, look, okay, you can play around with this if you want to. Within about 10 years, you won't have a right to vote if you keep playing around not doing it. Listen, rights are being eroded every day. I'm going to tell you something. I think I covered this on one of your shows. Back in 1999, 2000, 1998, 99, 2000, I drafted a constitutional amendment. They were trying to take away your and my right to vote for judges. Now, since I'm in the belly of the beast, I know what's coming. So I start going to Tallahassee, to Miami, all around the state, arguing. I filed an amendment to the Florida Constitution. They adopted it and voted it into law, and it preserved our right to elect judges. That happened on the 2000 ballot. Had that not happened, you and I wouldn't be voting for judges right now. And a judge would determine if you go to prison for life or death. The judge will determine how much money, you know what I'm saying, you will win or lose. The judge will determine how harsh a judgment will be. And so that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. You have to educate people on that. What my parents did with me when I was 18, my mother took me down and voted and registered me to vote. Took me down. Well, I took my daughter down, my youngest daughter down, had her to register, and she's voting. So it's top-down stuff. But what I tell people is practical. Rights are being eroded every day. That governor we have, listen, they're playing subtraction on our rights right now. And so what I tell people, look, you play around with this if you want to. You're going to be responsible. I'll say one more thing before I be quiet. When I used to try a lot of cases and everything, I would go to church, I speak to people, doing public speaking. Man, why don't they have black people on juries? I said, are you registered to vote? No, that's why. That's where they come from. They get them from the voter rolls. And then people, well, man, I don't want to register because I don't want to have jury duty. But you're going to have the audacity to complain that there's no African Americans on the jury. But you're telling me you don't want to be on the jury, and that's why you don't want to register to vote. That's the kind of quagmire that we have. I want to get on the jury, but I never get picked because once they find out I'm a lawyer, that's it.
Yeah, I never get picked for the same reason. Not that I'm a lawyer, but it's because it's like I let them know what I stand for, and usually I just don't get picked. I can't afford to be on a jury for an extended amount of time, but I show up. I want to make sure I'm not going to do my civic duty, and I have to find a way to cover practice and everything else. However, I can't complain if I didn't.
Exactly.
What am I going to complain about?
Let me say this. Let me say this right here. Listen, our country is so unique. Listen, I won so many cases because I told the jury the power that they have. They have the power. The police can make a mistake. The police can be arrogant, ignorant, wrong, but the jury can veto all of that. And when I empower them with that information, they call it jury nullification. No, that's a not guilty verdict because a cop overreached somebody. I love those cases where the cops overreach. I just magnify what they did that was wrong, highlight what my client did that was right, get the jury ticked off at the cops, and they release my client. We have a juror has that kind of power. And the founding fathers, one of the good things they did was establish the jury system. Well, when you elect judges, they control the jury panel, period, point blank. And so these are the kind of things that people need to understand. If you're participating in the process, you can elect the judge that's fair, or you cannot. You can stay home and let one get on the bench as a hanging judge. That's on you.
You know, you can show the power of the judges. Just look at what they are. Look at what Roberts is doing with the Supreme Court.
Exactly.
You know, you guys have to excuse me for this because I know you guys are holier than thou. But Roberts pretty much just told them this.
Yeah.
Okay. He said, "I'm not coming, and ain't nothing you can do about it."
That's true.
That's pretty much what he said.
They have life tenure. They can do what they want to do.
And that's a Supreme Court judge for all of those, you know, people that supposed to have been somewhat reverent in terms of their neutrality. And he's telling you, I can do whatever I want to. I can go and take my wife and go to the Bahamas and spend $1 billion, and there's nothing you can do about it. If I'm, you know, long as I'm, if Sean Conn is sponsoring me, sorry, Sean, to throw you under the bus, but if Sean Conn is sponsoring me, you know, then I can do whatever I want to do because he's just paid me to do what he wants me to do.
Speaking of doing what you want, and I was going to ask Pastor Barlow this with his attorney Barlow hat on, how is it that the governor can sign a bill that allows him to run for office and not quit?
Okay, it goes right back to what we're talking about because people in the Democrat Party, by the way, I'm NPA, non-party affiliation, so I'm right in the middle. It's because Democrat stayed home and didn't vote. And so you have a majority Republican House and Senate up there, and they can do whatever they want to do. Now, you can reverse that in some coming up elections by supporting candidates who have opposite positions. But so that's what happened. That's what we're talking about, right? So all these things are happening because people did not come out and vote like they should for the candidates that would have been against this. If the Democrats were in the majority, that wouldn't have happened. None of that would have happened. A lot of this crazy stuff that's happening now, you know, wouldn't happen if the Democrats were in the majority.
Even if they were just not necessarily the majority, but at least there was no Republican supermajority or a threat to those Republicans that If you don't do it the right way, you may not be here next year, and we will have a Democratic majority.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing, Josh, let me go back a little bit down the conversation. I want to hitchhike on Pastor Barlow. That amendment that was passed back in 2000, had it not been passed, the governor will appoint the judges.
Mm-hmm.
All of them.
Okay. So when we leave people unchecked, because we have 3 branches of government, right? But if the governor is going to appoint all the branches, I mean, just like, for example, we have a congressperson representing us, and we're the majority of the district, and he does not even have an office in Jacksonville. We don't even have an outcry about that. He hasn't even met with us. He had the audacity to send us a letter telling us where his office is at in Clay County and in Nassau County. So by you having these podcasts like what you're having, we're beginning now to meet people where they are. We can't continue to let the conservative have all the airwaves, which they do, right? I mean, the only reason why Tucker Carlson was fired because of collateral damage of that lawsuit, and he got more to follow. So somebody had to fall on the sword. Yep. But other than that, I mean, he was up there talking about, I don't see a problem with us being close with Putin. I mean, just they get so arrogant. But the point is, when is enough enough?
Yeah.
And we have to have these conversations like what you have, and we got to get more people. We got to even put it in our churches that, hey, on Tuesday evening, there's a podcast going on, and we're going to be talking about some issues, right? See, our folks are not a member of the Rotary Club. We're not a member of the Downtown Development Club. We get our survival information in worship, and we don't take advantage of that worship experience. Like one lady told me one time, Pastor Barlow, she said, Tony, they're having a meeting Tuesday night. I got to go to prayer meeting. I said, yes, ma'am. I said, now, what you going to do next week? She said, I'm going to go to prayer meeting. I said, what you going to do the week after that? She said, I'm going to go to prayer meeting. I said, well, why don't you come on and go and hear about what's going to go on with your life, because prayer meeting still going to go on, right? Because I said, if you die tomorrow, we still going to have prayer meeting next week.
Yep.
And she said, oh, I finally got it. I mean, some of the stuff that we are putting as priorities, even in our worship experience, we have to come out of these consecrated walls of worship to save our people. I mean, I use Pastor Bob, I use Malachi 3:10. If I can, Josh, as you said, if I can get a livable wage, I can put a little bit more money in there. Oh, y'all don't want to talk. Let me
tell you something. I was telling that, a few months ago, I shared with you all, with our audience, that if you didn't hear me say it, that I protested when Roe versus Wade was overturned for various reasons. Number one, I think I should have a right to what happens to my body, and nobody else should, right?
Absolutely.
Does that include God? Does that include God?
No, other than God, of course.
Okay.
And so I was listening to a story on 60 Minutes the other night about a young woman, married, had a child, was pregnant, showed up at the hospital because she was having complications from being pregnant. Well, two hospitals, as the story went, and you can look it up on 60 Minutes, it was about maternal health crisis in America. And what the person, the medical doctor said, that also the reason the system failed her is because of what politicians have put in place. And that is, the medication that was needed to help her could not be used because it was the same medication that's used for abortions, the one that's been in the news. And doctors are so afraid of being arrested that they are put in a position, no matter what promise, what's that oath, that Hippocratic oath that you all have to take, Dr. Kane, no matter what their oath and their intellectual capacity tells them, they're not doing it because they don't want to risk going to jail. Why? I mean, elected officials who have no medical, scientific, or otherwise knowledge of medicine are putting physicians in place. That's just one instance. People have to realize this kind of stuff is going to happen over and over and over again. And until people understand the connection, as Tony said, between policy, or I don't know if Pastor said it, between policy and practicality, they have to understand you might be pro-life, and that's your choice, right? But you have to understand there are bigger consequences that come with it when people take the rights of people away from them.
Okay, so let me expand on since we talk about health related stuff. Misoprostol, which is the drug that they're looking at, both misoprostol and misoprostol. While it might be used for abortion, it is also used to prevent ulcers from your everyday medications like Motrin, the ibuprofens, the so and so and so. It is used for that. It is also used for constipation. Okay, when this drug came out, it was not invented for abortions. Okay, now it does help with early pregnancy termination, and it also helps with cervical ripening. That when a woman is trying to have a baby, without the abortion, just trying to have it, and you're trying to get the cervix ready to present the baby, it is also used for that. So here we are having a group of politicians who don't know a damn thing about medicine, telling us how to practice medicine. And we're looking at not just abortion. We are looking at life-saving medications prevent ulcers. And, it may sound funny when I say prevent constipation in terms of a life-saving issue, but it may not be where we're going to say saving a life from a biological standpoint, but saving a life from a social standpoint, to where if I haven't been to the restroom, I haven't had a BM in 10 days, and this medication can help me, my doctor is not going to write it for me if I am of a certain age, because it may be interpreted as me having abortion-related medication. So how can a politician tell me how to practice medicine? It is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Let me come in as a pastor, as a minister. You do have a right to do with your body whatever you want to do with it. You do have that right. However, if you believe the Bible, there's a consequence for that if repentance does not take place thereafter. And so I don't get into the political side of it. I get into the eternality, the eternal side of it, because I've ministered to many women who had. Let me just give you this happened. I wrote it in my first book. It's in the book. I was meeting with a lady on an accident case. Okay, but I'm a minister too, but I'm handling case. She got in a car accident. She came to me for a car accident. I'm talking to her about her accident. God starts speaking to me. He says, ask her, listen to this now, ask her, has she ever failed to carry a pregnancy to full term? I'm like, God, I'm not going to ask her that question. That slap me. So he said, ask her. So I asked her, I said, excuse me, miss, I got a crazy question for you. Just please bear with me. Have you ever failed to carry a pregnancy to full term? And I remember I leaned away because I thought they was going to hit. I just met her. This lady started crying. She broke down. She said she had 5 abortions. 5. I prayed with that lady, took that lady through deliverance, and she left my office clean. She needed to be delivered from 5 murders. That was on her conscience. So we're talking about soul stuff here. Now, no, we just blended politics with social issues and with religious issues. But I'm just saying there's another side to this that's not political. It's spiritual. And so that's the part that I deal with more than anything else when it comes down to those types of issues. Murder, rape, robbery, arson, kidnapping, lying, stealing, killing, all that. Repentance is the key to all of it. But yeah, you do have a right to do with your body what you want to do with it. And most people, unfortunately, will not understand the gravity of that until they die. And so what we try to do is prevent people from dying in that state, because if you die in that state, according to the Bible, in an unrepentant state, it's hell and then the lake of fire. But anyway, let's go back to politics.
Yeah, we had a question in the chat, and Dr. Kane, tell me if I'm pronouncing it right. The question was asked, what's the name of the medicine? I looked it up, Mifepristone, mifepristone. Again, Mifepristone. It's a progesterone blocker.
There's 2 of them, misoprostol and misoprostol. One is more abortion patient than the other. Okay. But both of them can be used for abortion and for the prevention of, we still have no business in medicine. Politicians have no business in medicine, is my whole point. I can see what judges and lawyers come in that malpractice and so on and so on and so on. Okay. That's different. But this is a politician that can't even spell politician, trying to tell us how to practice medicine, trying to tell a woman what to do with her body. When his girlfriend is on his side chick is having abortions themselves, just so his wife or child or whomever won't find out. I mean, let's just call it like it is.
Yeah.
It's very critical. I think that, and speaking of hypocrites, and Pastor, I respect you, Mr. Hill, I respect you guys, but some of these guys that are sitting back, that get in the pulpit every Sunday and discuss and swear to what takes place in the Bible, but at the same time start supporting someone like a Governor DeSantis or a person who supports Governor DeSantis, like a mayor. I'm gonna just call it like it is, like the ones running for mayor. I mean, how do you sleep at night knowing that you supporting people whom are contradictory to what you're preaching every Sunday? It makes no sense to me how you can do that. None. And I mean, you got these same politicians doing the same thing. Why are they sitting back, going and stealing money? Pastor, as you said, when it came down to what is that happened at the stadium a while back with them supporting all the money is going into with Sean Conn in the stadium. And not really
Lot J, and all
Lot
that.
J. I mean, and then at the same time, and this is something that I participated in at the time. At the same time, we're fighting in the community, the black physicians and a lot of the white physicians as well. We're fighting, trying to just get COVID under wraps, and you're busy trying to approve money for Lot J. And when in the black community, we're not getting testing done. We were not getting the medications that we need, and so I didn't give a damn, excuse my language, I didn't give a damn about who people that were my friends, they were politicians, they were my friends. I didn't give a damn about them because I care about my family and my friends and my patients. And for them to sit back and be more concerned about getting money for Lot J, and only came out after they were called out. So those kind of politicians need to be out of office. And some of them were my friends, but they still need to go.
No, you're absolutely right. But we're the ones need to kick them out. And so that's why we're having this show tonight, because people need to understand that there are consequences. You just articulated them quite well. There are consequences to doing nothing, because this is what people need to understand. Procrastination is deciding to do nothing. It's still a decision. You decided not to act. That's an affirmative action to do nothing. And so there are consequences to that. So, it's hard for me to hear people complain about, what's going on with what the man is doing. Well, when the last time you voted? Oh, man, I haven't voted in 5. Well, shut up. You have nothing to say.
Get away from me.
Exactly. I don't want to hear it.
I don't even want to hear it.
And also,
Tony shared with us a handout and talked very eloquently. Right. And I wanted to say this, and I'll let you finish your comment. We're actually nearing the hour of our show. We have 5 minutes left. And I'm going to let you finish that, Tony, and then we are going to start wrapping up and giving you all final thoughts, unless you all have time, and we'll continue because Dr. Kane can continue on.
I got time.
I talk midnight if that. I'm not do it, but I can talk whenever we get through.
At the end of the day, we talk about the consequences. Well, elections have consequences when we don't participate. They have serious ramifications. And we are seeing that now at the state level. We saw again at the state level. Now they're going to move a bill where all your superintendents will be elected. So now we're gonna have all the crazies coming out because they got enough money. Talk about they know about education, so they're gonna run for superintendent. So we slept this. It's a lot of stuff that this guy has put in place that the ramification will be with us for years to come. I mean, years to come. I mean, even to the point, Johnson, where you asked, they passed the legislation where not only he doesn't have to resign, he can lose and still be the governor. Right. So he gets this cake and the ice cream too.
How about if you elected your physician, you elected your attorney, you elected your um, uh, um, anybody that's as it relates to your health, you elected your nurse. Okay, so if they come along and start making laws, I mean, I know it sounds facetious, but by the same token, it's not so facetious if you're allowing people who can determine life and death, as you said, Attorney Barlow, life and death for you. You know, you may be completely innocent of anything, but if a judge don't like your mama, okay, they can send you to jail. They can determine you deserve a death penalty. But yet you want to sit back and be more concerned about your gas price. You're not concerned about things that make a difference to a whole lot of other people that is not immediately affecting you. But if you turned around and people would start determining who elect your pastor, your physician, your nurse, your caregiver, let that be determined by the governor saying, I'm appointing him as your physician, but he works at Kmart, whatever. I mean, I know it's being facetious, but you get my drift.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
so if you don't get your big A behind out there and vote, you're going to get what you, one, may not deserve. No, what your family doesn't deserve. They may get what they deserve, but your family don't deserve.
Right.
So when it comes to voting, we do have to remember that there are folks who may want to vote, but there are new voting machines when you show up at the polls. So if you think you may be challenged by that. For example, if you have elderly folks in your family, take them to the poll. I took my aunt and they allowed me I had to sign some paperwork that I was there to assist her, right? So just and also encourage your elderly or sick relatives to get a vote by mail. Tony
Yep.
shared with us that if folks want to go to the polls and just don't have transportation, there are a couple of numbers that they can dial here in Duval County: 904-859-5911 or 904-859-7833. We'll post the flyer on our website with information to help you get to the poll. For those of you who are pastors and have churches, or if you are part of organizations, make a plan with your organizations to show up at the poll with your members. During early voting, you can go anywhere. You don't have to go to your precinct where that's on your card. So make a plan. If your meeting is downtown next Saturday, make a plan to take your members to the nearest precinct of your meeting place. I know at some churches, for example, after worship service, they tell people, let's take a caravan to the nearest election precinct for people to get out and vote. Make it a celebration, right? I think that's the thing that people need to understand. It is. I feel good. I don't know about you all. I feel good when I cast my vote, and I think that in all honesty, since I've been voting, I may have missed one in the past 10 years. And I don't even, and I can't, and I was mad at myself for doing that. I kept saying, I said, anyway, whatever the case may be, think about it. And Tony, I think sometimes that the reason folks don't want to talk about the history of African Americans in our country is because they don't want the ugliness of what happened to us to be present and known enough, because it might stir people up to want to get and to be active or to show up at the polls. If you don't know your history, then you won't understand that history can and will repeat itself.
Let me just say this to you, Josh and Dr. King, and in the absence of Pastor Barlow, is Juneteenth we're going to be on a 14 to 15 city tour throughout Florida. And we are calling it a rolling protest. We're going to be going, we're going to start off right here in Jacksonville on the celebration of Juneteenth, which will be that 19th. And we're going to be going out to the community to let them know that we're going to be bringing some of the banned books that, quote unquote, they are banned. We're going to bring those books because nobody can ban anything from us. We can participate just as Pastor Barlow said, we have rights. And so we're going to leave Jacksonville. We're going to Tallahassee. We're going to leave Tallahassee and we're overnight in Gainesville, but we're going to go throughout the state. We'll finish the bus tour on June 23rd back here in Jacksonville. And then most of the people fly out. We're going to have about 25 young people between 18 and 34 on that bus with us because we have to engage our youth in what's going on. Because no matter how much I work out or run or whatever I do, I'm going to leave here one day. So we need to make sure that the next generation realize the privileges and the honors and the opportunities that they have. But if you are sick, we can go to Dr. King and get well. If you're broken, we can go to Attorney Barlow, right, and make us whole. But if you got a gift, we need to be serving to those people and say, hey, we're here to serve you. That's what this whole thing is about.
The only thing I see wrong with that plan, Senator Hill, I love it. I think we need to do it for Jacksonville. I wish we had done it for this election coming up for the city. So I'm not going to say anything wrong with the plan. I just wish we had it's an excellent idea. I just wish we could have done it for this election because this election is huge. As you say, all politics are local, and we're having a situation where we have people that are supporting the crazy man in Tallahassee. And we really need to make sure Jacksonville wins to save the state. Okay?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Critical.
Absolutely.
If there was any way that I could have done, it's a brilliant idea.
Well, Dr. King, it's not too late. Yeah. Let's pause for the truth.
Yeah.
You got it in the background there. Pastor Barlow, he got it in the background. Josh, you got it in the background. Let's pause for the truth. We got people listening. Let's do something Mother's Day here in the city. Turn out for those mothers. Josh, let's do something that day that we are all going to vote. Meet us there at the voting place. We're going to have food. We got all kind of resources. The only reason that we will even come close to losing is because if Pastor Barlow says we don't show up.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. We can win. We have the numbers. We got the numbers.
I want to protect my mother. Okay. Right. If I'm here and you want to do a Mother's Day present, protect your mama from this BS. She spent her life taking care and making sure that your life will be meaningful, your livelihood will be meaningful, and that her children and grandchildren can progress in this world and live in this world, so that her legacy and your dad's, whomever, legacy can also live. The problem is we as a generation, and I'm talking about my generation, we've been very selfish. We are very selfish. Our parents did what you guys mentioned earlier. They took on those axe handles and took on the water hoses and the dogs and did everything to make things good for us. These people came along, gave us a few gifts here and there, the ability to go off to school. I'm not going to lie, a few some grant dollars for me to be able to get off to get my education at my favorite institution, Florida A&M University, yada yada yada. They did all of that so that I could get to do that. But then my generation turns around and drop the ball and don't educate their kids on what our parents did for us. We're complaining about what the governor is not allowing in the schools. And we've had guests on the show. We need to educate our children as to what the hell has happened and what is going on and get your ass out there, excuse me, and go so that you can protect your children, my grandchildren.
You,
Period.
you know,
So if you all are not familiar with Juneteenth, as Tony mentioned, Juneteenth is a federal holiday in the United States commemorating the emancipation of enslaved African Americans. And I had to say that, by the way, because I actually talked to someone last year. Last year, they had never heard of emancipation. So when Tony talked about not making an assumption that people know stuff, let's not make an assumption. We need to start educating people as much as we can, because we have been making an assumption that people know more than they do. Right. We're at the end of the show. We promise our guests to come on for an hour, and we don't want to encroach on any more of your time.
You can encroach on my time.
Very interesting discussion tonight. And we would like to give either both of you an opportunity to share your final thoughts of why voting is everyone's responsibility and why they should do it. I'll start with Pastor Barlow.
Well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate, anytime somebody invite me to speak, I take that seriously. That tells me that you think highly enough of me to ask me to come. So I try to honor that anytime I get an opportunity. So thank you. I really appreciate it. I'll just say this right here. One of the disconnects is this right here. We hear this. I suffered because I don't want my children to suffer. Well, you turned out real good, didn't you? You suffered, you worked through it, you humped and you made it, and now you spoil your child by trying to protect them from the very thing that helped you to become the person that you are. And that's the disconnect, Doc. That's where we are. That's how we failed this generation. But I'll just close with this right here. We had these conversations. My oldest daughter, she's in her 40s, and one night we were talking, and she said, "You know what, Dad? Do you remember you made us write a book report?" I was like, "I made you write a book report?" She's like, "Yeah, when we were kids, you made us write a book report on African American history and all that." Now they're like 8, 9, 10 at the time. I made them write a report over the summer. They didn't like it, but now she realizes how valuable that was. They didn't like it at the time. Another thing she told me that really blew me away. She said, "I told them when they were kids, don't ever pass by a homeless person. You got something to give it to them." Now we talking about back in the 90s. So we have to really raise our children to understand the significance of life. Too many people are playing around. And so I thank God that my parents instilled in me some very grave lessons about civil rights and cracked heads and things like that. So when I take voting very, very seriously, and I try to pass that on to the other generations as well.
Thank you, Pastor. Very enlightening thoughts. And thank you, by the way, for juggling your schedule to be with us tonight. And yes, you do have something worthy of saying, and that's why we keep inviting you on the show. Thank you. Tony, what are your final thoughts for tonight's show?
Well, I just want to close on this thought because ditto to Pastor Barlow, he hit it across the fence there, or as my grandmother used to say, he put it down there where the goats can get it. I just want to close with this thought, Jocelyn, Dr. Kane. Life is equally balanced between good and evil. Those who are listening to the podcast tonight, your next move will make the difference.
Amen.
Let the church say amen.
Amen.
Amen. Dr. Kane, thank you, Tony, also for coming on. Really appreciate it, and very inspiring. And you, although this is your first time as a guest, you've helped us to identify some guests in the past, and thank you for that. I think we also need to remind ourselves to thank people and not take them for granted. And I definitely don't take either.
Dr. Barlow, they finally let me come on. I don't help about 10 people get on. So I finally get a chance to come on. Dr. King, I finally get a chance to come on. Let me just say amen. Let the church say amen.
Amen. Glory to God. Hallelujah.
Well, listen, I'm gonna go ahead and put a plug in both of your ears and say we're nearing in 12 weeks, we'll be celebrating our 100th show. Wow. So you're on number 88. Right. So think about what it is you think we should talk about for our 100th podcast. Dr. Kane, what are your final thoughts for tonight?
Well, First of all, I want to thank both gentlemen for being here. I mean, I'm like Reverend Barlow. I can go on and on because of the injustices that I recognize. You know, I'm not in the legal situation that Pastor Barlow is, but I am in the medical situation and see it every day. The things that happen to our people. I suffer much like these two gentlemen mentally. Financially, I could do a hell of a lot better if that's what I wanted to do. But I'm not that selfish. And it's not one of these about me. It's about what I want our audience to be. Don't be so damn selfish you forget about your mama, your sister, your brother, your friends, your community, in which you're just worrying about your next dollar, okay, which they will take from you in a very short order and charge you $2 or $3 for it, taking it from you. I want our audience to get out and start honoring what both of these men have said. Get out, participate, help your community. Stop being so damn selfish just for yourself so you can get another dollar. Okay? I've been in, one of the reasons I've never gotten in politics is because I just could not tolerate what was being said and done. Now, maybe I should have, and looking back, that might have been a mistake. But one of the situations I think about is when Tilly Fowler, when she was alive, I'm in Tallahassee, and she's asking me to run for a local office and gonna give me all the money that I need and that I was a shoe-in. I took my little last drink of Hennessy and told her, I appreciate the offer, but that's not my cup of tea when I'm gonna sit back and do what you want me to do.
Yep.
I'm gonna do what my parents taught me were the right things to do. And that's not being selfish. And so I'm not making as much money as I like to, but I sleep like Attorney Barlow said, I sleep very good at night. I'm not worried about hell or heaven because I'm not doing anything to go to hell. Okay? And for those pastors out there who want to justify their behavior in terms of voting for certain candidates that or advocating votes for certain candidates that are not in the best interest of the community. I'm not just talking about the Black community, but the best interest of the community. Obviously, the Black community is what I'm close to because I am Black, and that's where I live, and that's who my people are. However, when you advocate for someone who's so selfish, like our governor, like one of the candidates for mayor, and I have no bones about who I support because I think that they are more supportive of at least listening to what is going on in the community. Okay. And I usually don't do it, as you know, Ms. Turner, but I will say I am who I am voting for. Because I try to leave the podcast very neutral in terms of our discussion. But the discussion is over. So I tell people quickly, I will vote for Donald Eaton because the other guy is for the bad guy, in particular, the bad guy in Tallahassee. And so I've lost friends that are politicians. I lost friends not because they rejected me, but I rejected them because they're not looking at what's best for my family and what's best for my community and what's best for my patients. They're just looking at what's best for themselves because they're worried about their dollars. They're worried about their next job or their appointment. What am I going to do when I'm not working? I don't care about that because I'm not looking at what happens to me if I don't support those people. So to get off my little horse of trying to preach, since I'm not a preacher, I am very pissed with the way that our local politicians are addressing the needs in our community, have no bones about it. They standing in front of me right now, I will tell them. I'm so appreciative of these gentlemen stepping up to the plate and voicing their opinion on what is right or wrong. They didn't say who they would vote for, I make sure. I understand that. But listening what they're saying about what's right or wrong, I got a pretty good idea who they'll vote.
You should.
Yep.
Well,
Yes,
as
sir.
you
Doc,
can,
it's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer.
as you can
Right.
see, tonight's topic was very conversation was very lively, but nonetheless, it was a very important topic. If you did not get the gist of what we all were trying to passionately share with you, please vote. Whomever your candidate is that you feel would affect the decisions being made for you and your family. And for those of us who might enjoy the fruits of our labor, as someone said to me earlier, the same laws that are being written to help other people can be written to help hurt you. And as Pastor Barlow said, you know, we could all be a paycheck away. He didn't say it, but I'm going to say it, a paycheck away from poverty. And so we should not, or being homeless. So thank you for tuning in to Pause for the Truth. Thank you to our guests. Please come back. And please, ladies and gentlemen, vote, vote, and vote. Good evening.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. Come back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.